For this session, we are honored to have with us Mr. Olivier Catherin, sir, an ethnologist by training who has carved a niche in the animation industry. As the founder of Less Toys Arts, he has been instrumental in shaping the landscape of animation. Mr. Olivier's dedication to the craft extends to his role as an important educator in animation production. Join us in this exploring remarkable journey together. Please join me in welcoming with a big round of applause Mr. Olivier Catherin, sir, who will guide us through Jiri Trnka's transformative journey from a theatrical puppetry to cinematic storytelling. I would also like to invite Mr. Prithul Kumar, sir, Joint Secretary Broadcasting, Ministry of Information and Broadcasting and Managing Director, NFDC, to felicitate our guest. With regard to the question and answers, we will be taking the questions at the end of the session, and now I shall invite Mr. Olivier, sir, to enlighten us with his insights and take this forward. Thank you, sir. Over to you.
Thank you. So can we start with the PowerPoint, please? Yeah. So I invite you to a time travel. There's no computers. It's time where we were doing animation with our hands. It's time that I didn't know, because this man here, Jiri Trnka, started to do animation films in 1946, so almost 80 years ago, and he passed away almost 60 years ago. But his influence still now is very important, especially in his own country, Czech Republic, but also all over the world for his way to do stop motion puppet animation. So, to introduce him, I will show you a little video if it works. Wrong start. No, this way maybe, no? No, this way? Wait. Yes, the green button, but this way? Yeah? Wrong start. Sorry. Long time travel. So to introduce him, I will show you a small video. It's a documentary about him. Oh, sorry.
The son of a plumber, Jiri Trnka was born in Bohemia on February 24th, 1912. He learned his trade at an early age, helping his grandmother make toy horses and dolls, and helping his mother, who was a dressmaker. By the age of 11, Trnka was working at the local theater, owned by famed puppeteer Joseph Skupa. With Skupa's help, in 1928 he enrolled in the prestigious School of Applied Arts in Prague. After graduation, Trnka earned a living drawing illustrations for newspapers. He directed a few theatrical plays and had some success as a painter. But his real success came as an illustrator of children's books. Trnka didn't make his first short film, Grandpa Planted a Beet, until he was 33. It immediately marked him as someone to watch, partly because his human characters made him one of the first animators to rebel against the Disney formula. After 4 more cell cartoons, in 1947, Trnka directed his first puppet animation film, The Czech Year, depicting the 6 divisions of a year in the Czech countryside. Finally, Trnka was able to express himself the way he wanted, and he was off and running toward becoming the world's premier puppet animator.
So when I went into animation, I taught that to my father, and his reference was not Walt Disney or Paul Grimaud, the most famous animation film director in France. It was Jiri Trnka. He had childhood memories about Trnka's feature film that he saw during his childhood. So at that time, I didn't really know much about Trnka because his films were very rare and disappeared a little bit at that time from cinemas and even television. This art of stop motion puppet films come from a specific history in Czech Republic. Almost all the countries in the world have this tradition of puppet theater. You have it in India, we have it in France. In France it is more hand theaters. And in Czech Republic it's very old story. It started in the Middle Ages and it became very popular in the 18th century. And it was the way the theater was diffused in small villages. So it became even more popular than theaters with actors. All the repertoire of theater in Czech Republic in the 18th and 19th century was transmitted by this theater, puppet theater. Here is an image of these puppets, wooden puppets. These are with sticks, but it can be with strings also. So, it is really after the First World War that puppet theater became the most popular in the Czech Republic, in Czechia, with more 3,000 puppet theaters in the country. I remember, please remember that Czechia is a very small country, so 3,000 is really a lot. I don't know how much it would be in India, but it's very. That means each little city had at least one or two puppet theater. And if you visit Czechia now, in each city you can visit a puppet theater museum, and sometimes with some also animation puppets, but mostly dedicated to theater. So that is the background of the beginning of Trnka. Trnka came to theaters learning to do puppets, and he learned with this Joseph Skupa, who was the main artist in puppet theater at that time. And he created his own company. He is Skupa, and he is a young Schwankmajer. You see, he's a tall and strong man, but with very delicate feelings and very poetic. So he created his own puppet theater company, but he became interested into cinema during the wartime, and he started to work in animation just after the war. What is strange that he didn't start directly doing puppet films. He started creating a 2D animation studio with two friends who will become famous directors too, Eduard Hoffmann and Olivier Catherin. And they created a studio still existing now, Brothers in T-shirt, which is a strange name for a studio. It became very, very famous. And then, after doing a few short films in 2D animation, cartoon films, he started to try to adapt his first love, puppet theater, into films. It was not the first one to do that in animation. People in animation started to use puppets very early, at the very beginning of the cinema, but it was just very short clips in some longer films, except in France there was a director coming from Russia, Lithuania, Ladislas Starevich, who did a lot of stop-motion film, even a feature film. It was the first European feature film. But these puppets were very different than the wooden puppets, the theater puppet that Trnka we will use. So his first attempt to do puppet film is a feature film. In fact, it is more 7 stories with traditional stories, Czech traditional stories, in one feature film. You saw some images of this film in the short documentary I showed you at the beginning. So there is 2 images, so different characters, the compilation of short stories. And then he did only stop-motion film. So from this first film, he did only short and feature films. So 7 feature films and 14 short films, which is, in animation, it's a lot. It's a very long process to do animation, and there's not so many directors having so long filmography in the history of animation, especially if you consider that it's in 20 years of time. That means 1 film a year, something like that. And he did it with small budget and small team. So, introducing this program, the lady said that is considered as the Czech Walt Disney. It's his reputation, but I would like to consider the question. He has this reputation because, you know, in communist countries, Walt Disney was known but not so really diffused, so they were more watching films from their own countries, so Soviet films and other countries' production. And the most popular in this area was really Trnka with his feature and short films. But you can compare this this popularity with Walt Disney. He was worldwide well known even in these communist countries. But as I mentioned starting this talk, my father was very aware about Trnka's film. So I don't know for India, but in Western Europe, we knew at least his feature films, and there was some commercial release in cinema during the 50s, during the 60s, and for this generation, he was really someone very important. Another difference is the kind of topics of the film. So Trnka was using traditional fairy tales, European fairy tales, but just for a part of this work. And maybe you know that Disney used mainly European stories, sometimes original ones, but most of the time it is traditional European stories that he used and changed a little bit for his own film. But you see that the influence of Trnka is rather different. He's also doing children's film, but we will see that his way to talk to children is a bit different than Disney, and there is always two levels of understanding his film. And most of the time, the main protagonists are human characters, and in Disney it is animals, and also most of these films are non-talkative films. For some feature films there is some talks, but for short films they are all silent. So that means that he had to direct the film to use the expression of the puppets in a different way because not using dialogues, which is a general particularity of animation, not using a lot of dialogues. It depends which animation, but in many films there is a lot of film not really talking. And of course the main difference is the use of the puppets. And another big difference, of course, he was an employee of the state, so he was permanent employee, he was not an entrepreneur, and he was really doing all his film himself, animating sometimes, but mostly he was doing the puppets, the character design of the puppets, and the backgrounds of the film. So, I would like to say a few words about the wooden puppets, because the cinematographic language of Trnka is really connected to the use of these wooden puppets. If you are using these puppets, that means that you have very few possibilities of animation. Now we have puppets with huge possibilities. I will show you some elements. This is a wooden puppet by Trnka. This is, probably you know this, Laika Animation Studio in North America. They are using this superposition 3D printed elements. That means that they are printing in 3D all the small elements of the characters, and they are changing it for each frame. And that's very precise animation, in fact. So you can, when you watch a film produced by Laika, it looks like almost like 3D animation, CGI animation. But there is also other ways to do puppets. For instance, you probably know Tim Burton, and Tim Burton has some puppets with a very precise mechanical inside. So you can move every part of the face, for instance, it's a very precise mechanic, so you can move everything, you can do any movement with the body. You can have any facial expression. It's very, very precise. And this is the Polish tradition, which is a bit in between. It's also rather precise, but it is really smooth plasticine that's not far from what I think engromit. You know, you can move, change the face pushing, something like that. And there is also the kind of mechanical, but nothing. But with wooden puppets, you can move anything. In fact, so most of the time the puppet will stay still. It's not so easy for me to turn to have my text there. So his inspiration comes from very different things. So you see that he adapted traditional text stories, but also Shakespeare, Chekhov, Boccaccio. Jaroslav Hašek is almost contemporary Czech writer. Even John Ford. I will show you a film directly inspired by John Ford's film, and of course, and Christian Andersen with a few projects. So, the originality of Trnka, and I will show you some clips from his film, is to mix the techniques. So, for instance, with the hand, he will use real hands. In Archangel Gabriel, he will use 2D animation and cutouts animation, mixing with stop motion, which is a bit unusual at that time. He will do some musical part. The Song of the Prairie is a musical. A Midsummer Night's Dream by Shakespeare is also musical in a way, partly at least. And he will push the visual language as far as he can without dialogues and facial expression. So we'll have to find the right way to express emotion, and he's doing it very well. And also there is this double level of lecture. So there is always political, more or less, but there is, for some films, there is some political lecture of it. Erotical a little bit, and social for sure. So I will show you first a clip from The Emperor's Nightingale. It is a Hans Christian Andersen story, and it's a feature film. It is his second feature film.
Claim to have found the bird.
So it is a story about an emperor choosing a mechanical bird instead of a real bird.
At first there was some doubt. Surely this plain, simple creature wasn't the famous minstrel of the picture book. But the resemblance was close enough. Let her perform. Sing, ordered the Lord Chamberlain. But the nightingale had never sung to order in her life, and the chattering crowd offended her. I sing only for love, she said. And then she sang of her home, of the willow trees leaning to the water, of the fishermen in their boats, of the cool river with the lilies drifting. She sang of beauty and of love. And the nightingale sang so sweetly that unaccustomed tears came to the emperor's eyes. And the nightingale sang more sweetly still, and for a moment the emperor understood her song, and his heart went soaring with it far beyond the porcelain wall.
So you see in this clip at the beginning and at the end there is this little girl, and you find it very oftenly in Trnka's film, innocent character changing things. And that's also a difference with American cinema, because most of the time these characters are more, it's a bit like in Russian films, in fact. They incarn some kind of purity, and they don't push things at all. They are just because of what they are, because they are really sincere and pure and innocent. They can move things, something very important. And it is this little girl who will push this emperor to come back to real things and the real nightingale. As you saw, the face of the emperor doesn't move at all, but there is tears coming at the moment, but we are moved by the character before the tears are coming. It is just a plus. And probably you noticed also that there is a lot of camera movement in this film, and he was, in this way, he was very innovative, and at that time it was not so easy, because cameras were very big, and puppets not so big, something like that. And to move camera was not an easy thing, but he pushed all his team to have this liberty with the camera movement, because probably he had a lot of influence from live action film that I will confirm with this other clip. It is a reference to Stagecoach by John Ford. So as you see, the characters have maybe 2 or 3 different expressions only. And there is a huge distance with reality. It's a Western. We can recognize a traditional Western, but there is a lot of fantasy. He's singing, there is impossible things happening, including shooting in the body. And it's so the fantasy and the distance with reality is part of animation, and especially with Trnka, he has all his liberty doing this film. And so in this way, he's really close to theater and puppet theater. There's a lot of theater convention in the theater that you can find also in the cinema, in animation in general, because you know that in some cartoons, for instance, you are not realistic. But in this case, with stop motion, he probably was one of the filmmakers using stop motion going as far as that with the distance of reality. And of course, the sense of humor. So in many films, there is always some very funny moment and a humoristic distance with the characters, but not sarcastic. It's more, we feel that he loves his character. He's just trying to play with them and have some humor about human being, something like that. The third film I want to show you is more connected to feelings, emotions, and a bit erotical also. So it's a meeting between 2 characters in a very strange situation. And it's an adaptation from Anton Chekhov's play. Don't have sound, it's strange. Okay, as you see, there is emotions and feelings, and also a kind of erotism in this sequence, even if it's very crude, but the situation is really pushing this way. So to know what really happened with the clothes, you have to watch the film, but probably it's a little devil. There is a story, a very well-known story in French cinema. I don't know if you have seen a very old film, older than that. In French, it is Le Quai des Brumes. It is the Dock of the Mist, probably, Dock of Mist, by Marcel Carnet. It is a 1936 film, I think, with Jean Gabin and Michel Morgan. And at the end of the film, so there are two lovers, Jean Gabin, the actor, watch Michel Morgan leaving, and there is a close-up on his face, and everybody is very moved about his emotion, watching his love going away. And the journalist asked to Jean Gabin, what were you thinking about during this moment, because we are so moved? And he answered, I was thinking about nothing. It's just you, because what happened before in the film. So for me, I was really thinking about nothing. So that is Trnka's art, is he puts you in the situation of emotion, and you put your own feelings on the puppet. His last film, he made in 1963. It was a short film called The Hand. The Hand was made during a time when, a very changing time in Czechoslovakia at that time, because it was the beginning of the spring, of Prague Spring, the revolt of young people in Prague against communism, and it was the starting of this Czech new wave at that time with Miloš Forman, Jiří Menzel, all these famous directors that made many masterpieces in a few years. And Trnka, he was already ill at that time, but he decided to do a film to talk about repression, totalitarianism, and even you can read it as a Stalinism. So he did a film about a very simple character, a pot maker. And this pot maker is chosen by the hand to sculpt a giant hand to serve the power of the hand. So I will show you the clip of this film. So, as you noticed, at the moment the hand put the hand on his head, he is helpless, he can't defend himself, and he becomes a puppet theater for his last name, becoming back to puppet theater in a way. So, of course, it is the only really political film he has. Some interpretations were saying that this puppet maker, this pot maker was an artist, but he's not really an artist. It's not something about artists. It's a simple person with all just the skill to do pot. I think I will be soon late. I wanted to show you a short scene of a Midsummer's Night Dream. Also, it is his last feature film. Should be sound too. You should have sound. Okay. Don't know why. Because it is the only one with dialogues, in fact. Okay, never mind, we can keep it. But maybe you know the story. It is two pairs of lovers, but their parents are kings and queens, so they can love each other as they would like. And they meet comedians, and at the moment the story becomes a comedy. It's very difficult to adapt this story into a film because it's a very complex story. But he makes something very very funny in a way, very musical, and with a lot of liberty. So let's keep. So about his legacy. After him. Is the main person going on to work in his way was Bratislav Poja, who was his main animator, and he did a lot of stop-motion film with this kind of puppets. But there were many others also doing this kind of puppet films, including after the end of communism. There was a time for at least 10 years there was almost no pollution in Czechia. But when the production restarted, it was starting with these puppet films. But each time when someone is so important, there is always someone going against it, in a way, trying to find new ways. And this man was Jan Schwankmajer. Schwankmajer was also using stop motion, but in a completely different way, and he opened a new door for Czech animation. But he had his disciple also in Japan, Kiachiro Kawamoto, who introduced really stop motion in Japan. And I wish, maybe I don't have time, I'm short in time, so I will skip this one. I will show you a little bit of Schwankmajer film, which to show you it is very different. It is a film in 3 parts about dialogue, the possibilities of dialogue. It is almost the opposite way to use stop-motion animation. And to finish, I will show you a trailer of a very new generation, the new generation Czech animation. It is a film produced last year. And in a way, mixing both tendencies, there is an inspiration from Schwankmajer with very daring things, way to use stop motion, but also there is a tribute to Trnka wooden puppets, and it's a film called Elektra, and I was the French co-producer of this film, so just watch the trailer.
Welcome, Elektra. Take a seat, please. Make yourself at home. So, who wants to start? Would you like some cake, sweetie?
So yes, you can do stop motion with human beings, and also the film uses life-size puppets, which are mannequins in fact, but with animated heads. So that's a kind of synthesis of this Czech stop motion animation. That's all. Thank you.
We shall open the floor for any questions from the audience.
It's fine, I'll just shout it out. This is more of a technical aspect, but in his films, he was also animating water, right?
Yes.
How did he?
You mean in the last film or? No, in Trnka.
Yeah, in Trnka, yeah. In Song of Bass, I think. And even in other films.
Yes, water is always a problem in stop motion animation. So we use tricks, and in general we use plastic. So because plastic is transparent and you can move plastic, and it's a way to give the impression. It is the same in Elektra. There is also water, and it's the same. It's the same system than in Trnka's film. So it's an old trick in animation.
Yeah. Can I ask one more follow-up? Yep. So even in the Trnka film, there was also some sort of refraction with the lower body. Like it looked different, like it was reflecting through water.
Yeah.
As in plastic, you would just see clearly, right?
Yeah, I don't know how they did that. I was not there, sorry. But it's a good question. You can look for the answer on internet. Probably there is an answer somewhere, yeah.
All right. I think with that, we express our thank you. We express our profound thanks to Olivier Catherin, sir, for his enlightening session. Can we have a huge round of applause for him? I would also like to acknowledge the National Film Development Corporation for hosting this festival under the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting.